Welcome to the first part of our webinar series. Thank you so much for taking out time this evening to join us to start, or rather kick off, a very exciting project that we are doing in Malleswaram. This is part of a project called Walkable Malaysia. It is a community initiated project that has been pitched under the Sustainable Urban Mobility Accord, which is a program run by Directorate of Urban Land Transport. We are a collective of a few, like an architecture and urban planning firm, Sensing Local, and Malleswaram Social, which is a community group in Malleswaram, who have set up a living lab at the neighborhoods level of Malleswaram for the last year and a half. It's called the Malleswaram Urban Living Lab. And as a part of the larger project, which I will not get too deep into because our first speaker, Suchitra, who's from Malleswaram Social, will introduce that. But as a part of this project, we are currently in a phase where we are going to move into a design workshop. We have already sort of done an assessment of understanding what exactly or what network within Malleswaram is walkable and which is not walkable. From where, after doing that, we are moving into sort of, or rather keeping these sessions to help inspire a larger project design in a very public manner. So starting today, we have, which is our first session, which is on decoding Malleswaram's conservancies. For this session, we have Suchitra, who's from Malleswaram Social, and Srilata Krishna, who's one of the Conservancy Lane residents. Tomorrow evening, we have a session called Planning for Public Spaces and Social Life. For this, we have architect and urban planner Brinda Shastri, who's also heading the urban design department at RV College, and has worked on the Gandhi Bazaar pedestrianization project. And we have Melissa Smith, who's an architect and urban planner from SEPT in Ahmedabad. She's also part of a studio called Banduk Smith Studio. Also have been doing extensive amount of work in actually understanding the street scale. On the 4th of March, we have our third session called Designing Streets for People. For this, we've invited Jana Urban Space. They are the people who have been working on Tender Shore roads and have managed to scale it to a huge extent. So sort of we are reaching out to them to also help understand these Tender Shore roads better. What was the philosophy behind it? How is it actually growing to include people? And we have another very exciting studio called Studio Pod, which is people-oriented design. They are based out of Mumbai and have done several projects at the scale of the street, both from an urban design perspective as well as from a planning perspective. On the 5th of March, which is the last session, which is happening on Friday, it's called Tactical Urbanism, a Window into the Future. I'm sure a lot of you are also inquisitive about what exactly is tactical urbanism. It is just sort of picking up in the Indian context. And in fact, it's something that now the government has become open to, which is to ideally pilot and test solutions before we actually implement them. And one example, if you all are from Bangalore, you all will know about the Church Street project that has been done, which is the Church Street First. It is also a tactical intervention where you really try and assess over 3 to 6 months how an idea would work before you actually implement it on a permanent basis. So we have two people joining us for that session on the 5th of March. One is architect Vidya Mohan Kumar. She's formed a firm called Urban Design Collective, and they're doing extensive work in Coimbatore and Chennai, where they're really trying to test certain tactical interventions. The second person is Abhimanyu, again a very young architect who's one of the winners of the Cycles for Change Challenge in Delhi, and they have gone ahead and implemented these pop-up cycle lanes and infrastructure, as well as done a lot of engagement with public to evaluate design. So this is our 4 series that are coming up. Without delaying further, I am going to of course, like all of you guys, it's the same webinar link that we have shared, which is applicable to all the 4 sessions. These will all be held at between 6:30 to 7:30 on today is the 2nd, on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of March. Also taking the chance to say that we are more than happy if anybody else wants to participate and even come and understand more about the project. The project website will be shared on the chat window shortly as well. Without wasting more time, I welcome Suchitra. Suchitra, as if you all have already seen the poster, but I would take this opportunity to introduce her. She is the co-founder and partner at Terra, which is architecture firm based out of Bangalore. She has also anchored setting up of Malleswaram Social. Though she has been looking at commercial projects at her firm, on the side she has built a wealth of data around Malleswaram just through documenting various aspects of it, pushing for multiple projects, potential projects that can transform the neighborhood. And her focus has obviously been to tackle urban issues, especially those that are connected to Malleswaram. She is also the co-initiator of Malleswaram Urban Living Lab, that's along with Sensing Local, which is part of my firm. And the idea of the Living Lab, as I had suggested, is to start working very constructively on neighborhood level issues on one end, but also the second end to start ideating more on how we can improvise and activate public space in a manner that it becomes more livable and equitable to a huge extent. Our second speaker is Srilata Krishna, and I will introduce her as soon as we finish with Suchitra. The format of the session will be basically we'll have Suchitra and Srilata who will be speaking for the first 25 to 30 minutes, post which we could have a question answer session. And in this case, because Suchitra will also be introducing the project and taking us through how exactly the whole project has come out and even an update on what has happened so far. She will also engage Srilata through a conversation, almost like a question answer session where we talk about understanding these conservancy lanes further to be able to help gain more insight into the context of these lanes. Suchitra, over to you.
Hi, happy to be here. Thanks, Sobia, for that introduction. So I'm going to start immediately with the presentation. So just give me a minute. Just let me know if you're able to see this. Not yet.
Yes. It's visible. It's visible.
It's visible, but it's not visible to me. So I have to so
check. I mean, maybe you pinned something wrongly. Huh?
It's visible to you people?
It's visible. It's visible.
Okay. All right. Okay. So here we are. Yeah, so today's talk is about decoding Malaysia.
Suchitra, if you can just zoom in one more level, I think,
yes.
or like you, yeah.
Good?
Yes, this is
right,
perfect.
Great. Okay, so we will be talking about Malleswaram's conservancies today, and I will speak from the perspective of both being an architect and a community member here. I stay in Malleswaram and I work in Malleswaram. I've done both of those for pretty much 25 years of my life. And so you can say that my life has been kind of circumscribed by Malleswaram's boundaries. And people who stay here, will tell you that there's something about Malleswaram. Those who stay here never want to leave. Those who have left want to come back, and so on. And maybe part of the decoding has to also be to understand what is the charm of this place. It's 100 years old, more than 100 years old, and it was set up during the time that big plague, sort of ravaged Bangalore. Much of the population, at least the Indian population, was in the Pete areas, the old city areas. And so the administration wanted to decongest and move people out to further extensions, and Malleswaram to the north and Basavangudi to the south were some of the so-called model hygienic suburbs which were formed. And so what you'll see is that Malleswaram is on a grid. The old plan shows that they were very generous plots. All the communities were accommodated in this area, and it was and then they had allocated space for various public activities, schools, cultural activities, and so on. And so pretty much if you see that Malleswaram is a very concise, compact, and neighborhood. So everything is very much within a 15-minute walking radius. The mayor of Paris is talking about a 15-minute neighborhood. We have this right here. So let's see now, what's happened to it over the years. I'm going to talk about 4 strands in my journey. And I call them with these names. I said, look outward, look with intent, work with people, and work with data. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes on each of these because I know that the audience is pretty much composed of designers and community people. And in some sense, what I want to say, it has equal relevance to both. As I said, I have had a practice here for 25 years, but as with most of us architects, you tend to be pretty absorbed in your project work and in your own design work and so on. And in fact, I think everybody will agree with me that now, our work kind of has got more and more limited to the site boundary. But I realized that at some point it's good to look outward. And when I say look outward, outside of the practice, but with the eyes of an architect or a designer, planner, whatever be your training, because as architects, as designers, we are uniquely positioned to understand the problems that the cities of India have, or all over the world, but cities in India for sure, are throwing at us, whether it is traffic, whether it is the lack of walkable areas, lack of public spaces, garbage issues, and so on. We work with chaos, we bring order to chaos, we work with plans, we understand maps, we know we are problem solvers. So all of this helps us to work with these problems. And somewhere, after maybe 10 years, when things had kind of settled down in my practice, and I really felt that I needed to look outward, and the inspiration came from a friend who is also from Malleswaram. I don't know whether he's on the call, but a presentation that he made showing the ideas that he had. And I said, oh, that's amazing. Here I am thinking only about my projects, and here he is thinking outside of that box. So we never know where inspiration can come from, and it's really good to look outward. The second strand, which I call look with intent. So when we look with intent, things start appearing to us. Our gaze shifts. We start looking with intent, with the intent of solving those problems, with the intent of looking for solutions, with keen observation, and our gaze completely moves to a different level. And pretty much, I would say some part of that happened. I started, of course, working on various issues, whether it was traffic or parking and open spaces and so on. I had a large printout, which I would spread out on our table, and several of us would sort of start looking at it and trying to understand what Malleswaram was, and trying to document, the issues that we saw there. And I started noticing that there was this fine network of small lanes, which were spread all through Malleswaram. And as I looked closer, I realized that maybe I must have seen them. I might have even have walked through them, but they had entirely escaped my notice. And I thought that as I spoke to other people, they seemed to know nothing about it. And these were the Conservancy lanes. And as I started walking through them, I realized that these might form a great alternative pedestrian network, because of their unique characteristics, and we'll come to it a little later. Now, the third strand, which I call work with community, that happened a few years later in 2016, when I got together with a few friends and we started Malleswaram Social, which was a community group within Malleswaram. And we started with the idea of just meeting with each other and being friendly with each other and having friends across, even in the neighborhood, just a street or two away, so that we could meet and have a walk sometime in the night, just have a glass of lassi, or just be friendly with each other. But soon enough, we realized that we had the same problems, and we started working on civic issues within the neighborhood, and that became a big focus for us. So working with people, when you work on your own, you are looking at things in a very, it's a single story. But when you work with other people, you start, your energies increase, your stories expand, and it makes it so much, so different. And the fourth strand, which I say, work with data, and that happened again a few years later, when we decided to, when we realized that though the problems were there, we might have some sense of the solutions, and we were a community, but we still needed something else to make ourselves more sort of effective. And that's when we decided to collaborate with Sensing Local, who have a deep and wide experience working on urban problems. And this collaboration we called Malleswaram Urban Living Lab. And through that, we were able to bring a focus and a certain a kind of a rigor to the work that we were doing already as a community, but with data and with facts and with figures, and with proper surveys. And then once that happens, these become irrefutable. So it's a much more sort of a stronger way of presenting your issues to the administration. Now I'm going to come back to Malleswaram. As I said, Malleswaram is a perfect 15-minute neighborhood, and everything is more or less within walking distance. And the beauty of this is that if there were a good network of walking lanes, no one needs to use a vehicle to reach the grocery store, market, a temple, or the metro station, or the railway station, or a park, schools. Everything actually falls within a walking radius. But where is the problem? The problems we started seeing as we started talking to people, and this is a sort of a map that shows what are the kind of problems that people face, whether it's construction debris, whether it's traffic, whether it is people urinating on the roads, whether it's encroachments, whether it's dark streets with improper lighting, or crossings which are very, very dangerous, and most dangerous of all, uneven footpaths which exist on paper as walking pathways, but are completely unusable. And one of the we had a memory maps workshop. We won the neighborhood engagement grant from IFA, and this was a map that I drew. I call it the angst map because it just shows all the sorts of problems that we face within this neighborhood, whether it's people falling, whether it's speed breakers and unlit streets, you name it. I think all of Bangalore or all of India will have plenty of angst maps that can be drawn. So with Malleswaram Urban Living Lab, we started looking at these problems in a more sort of a systematic way, and we started doing a walking audit where any number of, we had about 20 parameters which were given to the residents, the surveyors, and people walked through the neighborhood and marked out on the plans the various problems that they saw, whether it was garbage dumps, missing slabs, broken footpaths, curb cuts, uneven footpaths, and so on. And this comes against the survey that we also did earlier, which shows that most people would like to use walking as a primary mode of movement, but they are unable to do it because of the problems that we face on our footpaths. With this background, the conservancy lanes and doing something with them sort of becomes quite an interesting solution that can be put to good use. And this was the premise with which we put in a proposal for the Sustainable Mobility Accord competition, which was run by the Department of Urban Land Transport, DULT, last year in August. And we were one of the neighborhoods who won the grant. And this grant will help us to survey the neighborhood, to understand what are the problems, and to also roll out in a small way, maybe just a tactical intervention in the form of maybe one of the conservancies which would be upgraded to show the possibilities, and perhaps that would pave the way to having a larger rollout in the future. So now if you can see the map of Malleswaram, you can see the four sets of conservancies that we are looking at. So Conservancy 1, for those of you who are familiar with Malleswaram, there are two major roads which run north-south. One is Sampige Road and then Margosa Road. And between these two roads lie the very heavily commercialized parts of Malleswaram. And west of these roads is the residential locality. So fairly different characteristics, but the conservancy lanes are positioned in such a way that each one of them is able to uniquely offer a set of solutions for a problem that we might have. So, for example, if I look at, can you see the cursor on the map?
Yes.
You see my cursor? All right, great. So I'm looking at CL1. This is Conservancy Lane 1, which goes from north-south. And at the southern end of it is the market. At the northern end is 18th Cross, which is pretty much the entry to Malleswaram. CL2 also runs all the way from north to south, parallel. And this is CL2 is closer to Sampige Road, CL1 is closer to Margosa Road. In our estimation, both of these provided their own solutions. So anyway, I'll come to it. CL3 is a set of smaller conservancy lanes which start from 9th Cross and proceed towards about 6th Cross or so. Four smallish lanes, which again provided a different ambience and a different solution. And CL4 is further northward. So I'm going to speak a bit about each of these. So Conservancy Lane 1, which I showed you first, is parallel to Margosa Road, and the northern end of it is and in somewhere along the middle of it, it connects to the major bus stops in Malleswaram, and a whole lot of school students, college students, because Malleswaram is it's a fairly large educational hub. They take these routes. They walk up 15th Cross, which is where my cursor is positioned now, or they walk up 13th Cross. They walk from 18th Cross. So they use these routes, and they actually endanger themselves as they walk through, as they cross Margosa Road, or as they cross Sampigi Road in order to come here. So this we felt was a great parallel network which could be used to access in parts the the schools and colleges which lie within this area. And this is some visuals of these routes. Now, as you can see, the beauty of a Conservancy lane is it's barely about 8 to 12 feet wide at its largest. It's about 10 to 12 feet wide, and it's not narrower than about 6-7 feet. So it has its sense of enclosure, but at the same time, it's wide enough to make you feel safe, but it's not so wide that you can have cars zooming through or traffic zooming through it. So even people who park their cars here, drive in there fairly slowly. And then there are houses on either side of the Conservancy. So these provide the eyes of the street that we look for, and with a few simple changes, maybe lighting or surfacing, resurfacing, or certain small simple interventions, these can actually become really good walking networks. Conservancy 2 is the one which is closer to Sampigi Road. Again, provides a full walking path all the way from the market area northwards till about till 18th Cross. And this can be a parallel network walking lane to Sampigi Road, which tends to get very crowded, full of traffic. So when you walk through these Conservancy lanes, this is your experience of walking through them. Sorry, skipped. Yeah, so you can see that CL2, again, the experience of walking through this, I mean, it's vastly different compared to how it would feel if you're walking right next to traffic on Sampigi Road. Conservancy Lane 3 has a very interesting set of possibilities, and I'll just run you through each one of them. So there are 4 conservancies. Lane A, B, C, D is what we call them. Each one of them quite different. And what they do is, on the southwestern end, where my cursor is the way that people go to the metro. On the southeastern end, where lane D is the way to go towards Sampigi Road. And at the northern end, where of lane A, the first lane, where my cursor is actually fairly close to the Malleswaram railway station. So this gives again a great network for getting to various points of travel for people who stay in Malleswaram. And this is the way they look. Again, there are houses on either side, and some of the gates open on this side. Some could be the back gates or the front gates. Narrow enough, but very fairly neat, especially when the front gates open onto the conservancies. Where my cursor is, you can see there is a person who has actually grown plants and made a nice, walkway out here. The possibilities that these offer us are endless, and we'll sort of speak a little about it maybe towards the end. This is the second parallel lane. This is the third parallel lane. Third parallel is skipping. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm going to have to go down a bit. So if you see lane C, where my cursor is, the experience of going through this is absolutely lovely because there are trees. It's very quiet. There are hardly any people walking here. No encroachments, nothing. It's very quiet. It's beautiful, and you can almost imagine this as being our imagination of this was maybe a quiet place for seniors to be able to take a evening constitutional. If a sort of a bar could be could be put on one side on next to the wall. They could walk safely, maybe places to sit and meet each other. We don't have any places like that for seniors, and there's a large senior population in Malleswaram. And this is lane C. Lane D. I'm sorry, it's my mouse has a very jagged movement, I think. Yeah, this is lane D. So all of these very different in characteristic, but all of them having great sense of possibilities, when we rework them. And this is the Conservancy Lane 4, which is fairly to the north of Malleswaram, and this connects to 8th Main Road, which now goes towards Yashwantpur Circle. And 8th Main is now has been white topped, and the pavements on either side of the road have been broadened, and they're going to be made almost like tender shore pavements. So what we do foresee is that one way would be for people to sort of walk down this and then walk up 8th Main and take a nice evening stroll in a good environment. Again, something we just lack complete in Malleswaram. And I'll tell you, if you look at the visuals, you'll understand what I'm saying, because you can see it's beautifully surfaced, it's quite clean and neat, and and this is the problem that we see, except where my cursor is, you see there's a toilet at the end of it, which BBMP in their wisdom have actually done, erected a lot of about 4 or 5 conservancies have toilets, public toilets erected at the end of them, and typically these then become places which are trashed, which are misused and vandalized. But with a little bit of work on this, this becomes a beautiful way to walk up and down, and maybe for children to play in and so on. And what we did is we took these ideas and we participated in the Z-Axis competition this time, which was run by the Charles Correa Foundation. And we decided to sort of look at, show them what are our ideas, what might be the possible ways that we could repurpose them. And as you can see, some of the visuals, whether it is for children to play, whether it is for the community to gather, whether it is for seniors, or for toddlers to, maybe a sand pit and so on. So literally the possibilities are endless. And what we will be doing in the next, so we are done with the walking audit, and the next phase we are working with designers in Malleswaram to look at the kind of ideas, to ideate with them and with the community members to look at what could emerge from this. So the first phase of the next phase of this is with designers and professionals, and the next phase of that would be with the community members. And once we finish with these exercises, we hope to come up with a lot of really interesting ideas on how to repurpose these conservancies and possibly create an entire set of alternate pedestrian walkways, slowways in Malleswaram. Sobia?
Yes. Thanks, Suchitra. And I think we can just move in here into Srilaka's session. Do you want to take the opportunity to introduce her? And maybe then we could, after, just have a few questions, and then we can open it out to the rest of the group that's there.
Sure.
Nothing. Yeah, we can stop sharing screen. You want to? Yeah. We can get both of you guys on screen because your videos are on.
Yeah, I have this really strange background. I don't know who put it on, but anyway. Um,
It's quite colorful.
yeah, I look like I'm floating somewhere in sort of stratosphere, but uh, anyway, I have great pleasure in introducing Srilata, who's a good friend and a part of Malleswaram, and someone I've known in the last few years. Srilata is a professional musician. She quit her job as a software engineer so that she could devote time to music. And she's doing her PhD on traditional music. She has been, I hope she finishes her PhD soon because we want her back to be with us in our community work because she's been a splendid support and ideator for many of our, much of the work that we were doing, and she's currently on a little bit of a sabbatical from Malleswaram Social. So welcome, Srilata.
Thank
Srilata
you.
also stays in the set in one of these, so lane B of Conservancy 4. If you've been paying attention, you know where that is. Uh, it's one of the 4 conservancies that we took up for our Z-axis sort of competition, and she's going to sort of be she's just going to talk a bit about her experience of staying in this conservancy and what she feels about it. So welcome, Srilata.
Hey,
Um,
thanks.
uh, just tell us a little bit about how maybe a bit about how long you've stayed in Malleswaram, and whether you stayed here all through, and a little bit about the experience of staying here.
Yes. So I have stayed in I have had house in Malleswaram for the last 20 years now. But I have contacts with Malleswaram from my childhood because my grandparents were also from here. So I sort of have seen the whole of Malleswaram change and become what it is today. Um, and I live in a family with 3 generations: my in-laws and my kids, and of course my brother-in-law also lives next door. So as you just explained the concept of the conservancy lane, our house has 2 approaches. There's one from the main road and the other is from the conservancy lane. So this is found in, I think, some of the plots where there is a house in the front and there is another house right behind that house. So there is no approach for a car or anything from the main road. We depend on the conservancy lane to park our car, to bring our car inside as a sort of a driveway to get to our garage, which is located facing the conservancy lane. So that's my brief about where my house is located. Anything else that you want me to add about?
Suchitra, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah. I know that, I often, when I visit you, I never know whether to enter from your front gate. I used to enter from your front gate, and then now I've realized that your back gate is actually a better way to get to your
Yes.
place. So can you
Yes.
tell us something about how your family uses it?
Yes. So I think when we 20 years ago when we built the house, that was just a bunch of bushes and it was not maintained at all. Nobody was using it. So we were the first to build a sort of a garage in the backside and use that lane, sort of cemented up a part of it so that we can approach it. And later, other houses that were in the lane also started using it, and it started becoming cleaner and cleaner. So that's way back in history. But now that we have a few more houses that have entrances from the conservancy lane, I feel it's much cleaner. And interestingly, I don't know if we should call it an encroachment, but one end of the conservancy lane that's in our block, one end is blocked for like vehicles, with that garden that you just pointed out, I think. So it looks almost like a private garden, but it's actually it's on a public space. Although we were sort of we have to, when we get into our lane, it's a sort of a one way, and we have to actually back out sometimes, because it's blocked on one side. But the advantage of blocking off that way is that there is no traffic at all. So it's almost like we have a extra space for the kids to play in. We can walk there. Of course, there's also the question of sunshine and all that. And it's quieter than being right on the main road. So I think these are some of the things that I really like about the Conservancy lane that we are in. Obviously, different lanes are in different states, as you just pointed out. Some of them are nice and well lit, others are not, and others probably, are used for commercial purposes and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All of them are very, very different. Do you see any specific problems with the Conservancy lanes being as the way they are now?
See, they started off as being just Conservancy lanes. At some point, I think VBMP decided to call them Conservancy roads, sort of upgrading the name. But they don't have street names, for example. There's no board that says this is actually a public road. So I think a lot of people don't even realize that it's a road that is accessible to public. They think it's like a private driveway or whatever. And in some of the lanes, I've also seen that they actually put gates so that the people in the lane have access to it, and it appears like it's part of their whatever complex of houses. So these are these are some of the things. And the street lights, for example, if you wanted lampposts, then I think we are controlling it manually now. We have to turn on and turn off in the evenings. So sort of the maintenance part of it, it's not as good as the that you would find in the main roads. Maybe it will change with the new electrical wiring and things like that. What else can I say about it? They're not swept. When the cleaning people come, they clean the main roads, but the Conservancy lanes are not usually maintained unless somebody asks them to come in.
Is it almost like that they don't? It's almost like you've turned this. The city has turned its back on these lanes. Because it's supposed to be conservancies, where people did manual scavenging, and so now it's like these are all forgotten and sort of ignored.
Yes, so they asphalted it once. I won't call it asphalted. They've laid concrete, very haphazardly done concreting, but it was done once in the 20 years. So it's not as if they, like when they dig up for some reason, they don't put it back properly. So these kinds of problems are there, that it is not treated like another main road, another crossroad. So that sort of
is that an advantage or a disadvantage?
See, since there is no major traffic, it is okay. We're able to go by. There's not much wear and tear in that sense. So if there is traffic, then yeah, the road would probably need better maintenance. We're okay with it. So I'm not actively complaining, but if let us say the individual residents don't cooperate in keeping it clean and things like that, that could be an issue. Like some of the lanes that you were pointing out, they do not have residents that have gates facing the Conservancy lane. So these lanes are just sort of behind large apartment complexes, for example. In which case they don't really care whether it's maintained or not. And
sure.
if it is cleaned up, it's really their luck, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Sri, for that kind of insight into how it is living right next to one of these lanes. Sobia, would you like to take it on from here?
Yes. Thank you so much. It is a superb sort of insight as well. And I think as a Conservancy lane resident, to even understand how you all have been instrumental in actually reclaiming that space as a resident, right? I mean, it's happened in such an informal manner. And now we're talking about reclaiming it for the neighborhood as well, where it actually gets a use that comes onto it. I'll now take this time to open out. We are at 7:15, so maybe 15 to 20 minutes of maybe questions from people. What I'd suggest is there is a raise hand option. If you could raise hand, it will be on your bottom panel, and then I can sort of unmute you to sort of ask your question. So we've got one question from Dhaval, who has asked how many kilometers of conservancy lanes in Malleswaram. So effectively, it is around 2.5 kilometers in total. But what we are looking at is a 11-kilometer network, which includes footpath plus conservancy lanes. That's effectively what we're trying to comprise, I mean, the entire network of. So the network here at least will not just focus on conservancies, but integrate them into the footpath network that's coming up. I mean, if people have questions, please feel free to, this architect Shrisha Bhatt, please unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Yeah. Hello, am I audible here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Yeah, thank you for an amazing presentation on Malleswaram. My mom has been working there for at least 20 years now. We stayed inside IIC, although we didn't have our house there, but uh, Malleswaram was a major part of our lives. So one question that I want to add on and then also ask is a lot of conservancy, I mean, parts of conservancy lanes in Malleswaram also have a lot of interesting activities. Like, let's say, closer towards the Margosa Road near Mangalore Stores, you have some real interesting, food joints that are part of conservancy lanes. In some places, there are a lot of interesting activities in terms of, let's say, some eateries could be a landmark there for many people. And for many people, there are, landmarks in terms of activities, is what I'm trying to tell you. So, is your project also trying to reconsider uh, relocating them into some different areas, or also considering them and some sort of tactical design interventions, having them in the same location and trying to include them in your 11-kilometer stretch?
Yeah. Suchitra, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So I think what we realized is, as I said, that's why I was at pains to tell you to point out that each of these places actually have their own unique characteristics. And as people who will get into the design workshop will discover, I think each one of them, because of the context and because of the nature of their, the way they look and the way they work, will present a different set of solutions. So from our point of view, again, we have to be, so the reason to bring in somebody who stays at close to conservancy is because our perspective as architects is often a slightly, it's like where I am, my background, it's like a bit stratospheric. We need to be brought down swiftly to the ground to understand what is the ground reality there. So if sometimes from our point, food joint would be nice. From a perspective of a resident, this is really disastrous because our experience of having food places in any area is not very positive. So I would say yes, we would be looking at these things because those are the ways that the neighborhood becomes lively and interesting. But we'll also be try and be as sensitive as possible to the context and see, and that's where as designers, we can bring in uh, that kind of a nuanced kind of solutioning.
Sure, sure. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Can I get Siri? You put your hand up as well. Please unmute yourself.
Mm. Hi, this is Siri. I'm an architect and an urban planner. I had just one question. Yes, as of what the presentation I was being part of, I got to know that you guys have done the safety gap analysis throughout those conservancy streets. I was just wondering what is the safety conditions of those places at night time. So I mean, are we looking into any design intervention in those places? That was first part of my question. And the second part was, Suchitra mentioned, there are BBMP toilets as the encroachment at the end of the conservancy lanes in some of the lanes. So what would be the idea when you think of the newer design intervention? Would they be eliminated? Because when toilet comes, like Suchitra automatically mentioned, that the garbage dumps will be seen in and around those places. So what is the idea that you are looking in this aspect of it?
So I'll answer the second question first and the first question later. Maybe Sobia can also add. Yes, of course. It seems like your bathroom, the public toilet is about 8 feet wide and 15 feet long. So wonderful. Just plonk it in the conservancy because that's where the gaps are. There's a 10 feet wide space. I mean, anybody who's thinking in the way that BPMP thinks, this is what they do. They just plonk it where they find spaces. And every place where there is a toilet at the end of the conservancy, the place behind that is really unsafe. Somebody said creepy even when they were doing the survey. So for sure, unfortunately, I think if we are ever to revitalize the conservancies, these would have to go and these would have to get relocated. And it doesn't mean relocated, it could be, I don't know, we have to look at these solutions because, like, why does it have to be so wide? Can it be narrower? Can it be done in a different way, which is much safer for people to use? And does it have to have the same, it's like the same, cookie cutter?
Chitra, just sort of, maybe you want to just switch off your video and try?
Yeah. Not audible?
Yeah, now it's clear.
Yeah, so yes, we certainly have to relook at this. I would say, without doubt. And without doubt, we are looking at making them safer at night, and that was the part. I mean, that was one of the reasons that we did a night audit. So, Sophia, you want to speak a little bit more about this?
Yeah. So we actually have undertaken a walking audit, which happened over the last 2 weekends. So we did a walking audit that covered all the routes, which was done in the morning time, slightly like non-peak time, to also sort of ensure that we capture issues like broken footpaths, we capture issues of where we have what's happening at our junctions, where are the crossings there, if there is signalized, non-signalized, other aspects related to surface treatments, also in terms of accessibility and just accessibility in the term of having like some ramps, where are those located. The other audit that we did was the evening audit, which happened last Saturday evening. So what we did is we walked, this was just basically without capturing issues, the only thing we did was to capture how safe we feel walking along this stretch, and also capture where there are streetlights that are working and not working. And in fact, what we realized is 90% of the conservancies did not have streetlights. Extremely unsafe. It's so pitch dark that you can't even walk through it. So I think for us, the main idea is, and we've collected photo evidence for this. In fact, with one of the Conservancy Lane residents, they had sort of almost fought to get a street light, at least at the back of their house, because it was becoming extremely like unsafe for them to actually even like get out and come and sit and or take something from the back of their house, right? Because you had a lot of negative influence that was there. So yes, this is one of the parts of data that we have collected at this moment to actually inform design. So we do know where it's lit, unlit. We've got all the evidence around this, and we've also got it on a live now interactive map that we are putting it forward for the workshop.
Thank you, Robian. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? We don't have anyone. Rahul, why don't you unmute and ask?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Sobia. Hi, Sushita. My question is, are there any challenges or were there any challenges until this point of the project where the homeowners as well as the residents that you have brought on board or are not willing to be on board of with these plans? Are they worried? Are there any concerns about pedestrianization as well as the future changes that would bring along these conservancy lanes? So, yeah.
Right.
This is pertaining to
Suchitra?
the current proposal until what
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah. Suchitra, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So yeah, we are very conscious that see, somebody's parking their car and they think that the Conservancy lane like is a parking space for them. Somebody uses it for drying their clothes, and for them that's a laundry yard, a drying yard, whatever you want to call it. Now, obviously, there is a sense of ownership which has built up over the years because there hasn't been a particular use kind of ascribed to it. And we absolutely anticipate that there will be some kind of a pushback on this from the residents, and which is why we are kind of going about this in a very gradual way. One of the things that we are doing is to reach out to few people who live near the conservancies and try and explain it to them, explain the positives that come out of it. Like Sophia mentioned, if the lane behind your house is well lit, it's not only safe for the city, but it's also safe for you to use it, and it's much nicer if it is it has good lighting or it's surfaced well and so on. So the positives are definitely outweigh the negatives. So we are we're trying to approach this in a very soft way. Again, we don't believe in a top-down approach. This is all about collaboration, about opening it up and making it very inclusive and trying to bring as many people on board. So that would be our approach.
Can I just add on one more thing, please? Uh,
Sure.
Sure.
all of this can be understood by people of maybe our profession or who are within the similar vicinity of practices. But out of this, what was there one common concern that the homeowners as well as the people in the residents in these particular areas were means one common complaint or an issue or whatever concern they had for the future proposal, one common one or one strong that came out of almost everybody.
So we haven't done, we are going to be, we've done some amount of surveying, talking to residents and getting a sense of what they feel, but we haven't done a very detailed one yet. We will be bringing them on board very soon. The moment the design workshops with the designers, with the architects is over, we will be bringing them on board because, as I said before also, we need to know, you're very right, we make all these great plans, but we really need to speak to people who stay there to understand what they feel. And since Srilata is still there, maybe she might want to say something.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about this. Two problems. I think one you already addressed about people using it as a parking space. In fact, some of the houses in our lane, they don't even have a parking space inside their house. They are dependent on the lane to be able to. They have cars, but not a parking space. So they use the lane, and even uh, people who rent out the houses, if they have extra cars, they are dependent on the lanes to park. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think many people in general, I've seen that when you say maybe there's going to be a seating space or whatever, they worry that it's going to be permanently occupied by whatever unsavory elements. I don't know who they are, but we foresee negative things more than the architects do, I suppose.
I think if I may also just add to that point, Rahul, what the way the project is being rolled out is not like we are moving into permanent interventions. We are actually going to go through a 3 to 6 month pilot phase. What that means is we are going to try and test using tactical interventions and see how people are responding. So the reason we are not going in with a proposal to the residents, because it is no proposal yet, it is just saying that, okay, I want to reclaim these for walking. what is the design intervention has not been done yet. So we want to do that along with architects, designers, as well as the residents involved into our project to say that, okay, let's try these options out. Let's see how they work. Let's then evaluate them before we move into a finalized intervention. So you have to understand that this project is actually going to take place from Jan to December this year. And it is going to go through from the month of, once we finish our design, from the month of probably mid-March to almost another 3 to 6 months from there, where we'll be testing these things. So, and when, I think when Suchitra is also saying that it is in a very gentle way, you have to bring them on board. This is what we mean, right? So we're not going there with saying, okay, this is the solution and I'm going to go ahead and implement it and you're going to see a change overnight in your lane, where you don't even have time to negotiate. So that's the whole idea of even using tactical interventions for a project like this.
And to add to that, one thing I feel is that that is why I find that the collaboration like this between a research organization and a community organization is so fruitful. It's because a research organization on its own, might have design solutions, they might do surveys and all of that, but it's the community which actually is able to bring the sort of the ground reality and foreground sort of the concerns of the citizens and make it more compassionate and good for the residents. It's all, at the end of the day, it's not about trying to just do some great designs. It's about actually improving the life of people within this neighborhood.
We have one more question.
Thank you.
Sorry, Rahul. Yeah, so we have one more question. Dhaval has asked if such an initiative has been tried in the past. I think you'll have to attend the next few sessions to see that as well, if they have been attempted or not. So we've tried to put together, actually there's some very interesting initiatives that are happening all over India at this scale of the neighborhood. Specific to conservancy lanes, not so much, not that I am aware of. I don't know, Suchitra, if you are aware of any initiatives that are reclaiming conservancies in this manner in Bangalore. However, we'll have to look forward for our next 4 sessions, and I'm going to be cognizant of the time. Ravi, do you have a question? So, yeah, I'm going to be cognizant of time. It's already 7:34. Thank you all for joining the session. I'm so glad we had a super participation of over 60.
No, I do have a question.
Oh, okay, sorry. Please go ahead.
No, we talked about facilitating movement of senior citizens in shopping, etc. Why we not looked at the conservancy lanes between Margosa Road and Sampige Road and between 6th Cross and 11th Cross? Because that is the major shopping area in Malleswaram and where there's a lot of traffic, both of the vehicles as well as pedestrian traffic, and where the Conservancy Lane project that we are thinking of would have a greater impact.
Ravi, we are actually looking at Conservancy lanes 1 and 2 are the 2 parallels which run from north to south, parallel to Margosa, closer to Margosa and closer to Sampige. We are in fact looking at those.
No, I'm talking of the Conservancy lanes between Margosa Road and Sampige Road. There are quite a few of them between 6th Cross and 11th Cross, or 10th Cross probably, which is where the major market area is. And I don't know, I just think that's it.
The Conservancy lanes within the market areas have already been commercialized. They're already being taken over by the commercial, by shops. In those areas, it's probably very difficult to now start intervening and changing the way they look. And I mean, it's very difficult to change their usage right now. What we are looking at is if you go from 8th to 9th, it's completely commercial. But suddenly from 9th onwards, it becomes completely clear of there is no commercial use at all. So yes, we will be we'll see how the once the, in fact, if at all this the public toilets can be removed. I think those areas, the lanes behind public toilets are actually not commercialized, and maybe we have a good opportunity there. But those which are already commercialized, those would be walking would be, of course, possible, and it's already safe because there are commercial establishments there. But beyond that, I don't know. At this point, we don't know, because our brief at this point is not so. It's just a beginning.
So, shall we wrap it up? Thank you guys so much. Thank you all for joining. I hope to see you all in our next sessions as well. Oh, great. Soumya has given a suggestion. They're saying the conservancies in Tumkur have been looked at. Absolutely good suggestion. We can definitely look into that. And if you have more information, please do share it with us as well. Great. Thank you. Have a nice evening, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.